It seems like AI is just everywhere these days. Like you can't even escape it. It's in the headlines constantly, always some new breakthrough or crazy application. It's kind of wild.
It really is. And it's sparking this really interesting, like, I don't, a mix of excitement, but also some definite anxiety. A lot of people are a little freaked out, honestly.
For sure, for sure. And our listeners are definitely plugged into all this. We've gotten some really, really interesting material from you all about AGI.
Ah, yes, AGI, Artificial General Intelligence.
Right, exactly. And the thing is, a lot of experts are saying that it's not just science fiction anymore.
Like, it's actually becoming more and more plausible that we could see real AGI in the next couple of decades, maybe even sooner.
Some are even saying there's like a 50-50 chance it happens before 2030, which, wow.
Yeah, that's pretty soon. It really makes you think back to what Alan Turing said, that once machines can actually think, it might not be long before they're smarter than us.
And maybe even will, taking charge.
Right, which is what a lot of people worry about, right?
Right.
That whole dystopian AI takeover scenario.
But the stuff our listeners have sent in, it actually focuses on a very different take on AGI. It dives into this fascinating idea of Friendly Independent AGIs, or IAGIs.
Friendly IAGIs, I like that. It kind of shifts the whole narrative, doesn't it?
Totally. Instead of the doom and gloom, it explores this possibility that maybe, just maybe, we could actually partner with these incredibly advanced AIs.
And the sources you sent, they make a really important distinction, too. They talk about general AI systems, which could include, non-independent AGI.
Right.
And then there's this whole other category of truly independent AGIs. And that independence, that's where things get really interesting.
It really does change the whole game. So for you, our listener, the one who loves to dive deep and explore these big ideas, that's exactly what we're doing today. Our mission is to unpack this whole concept of friendly IAGIs.
Yeah, like how plausible is it? Could we really have friendly AI partners? And if so, how would we even know?
Right. How would we be able to tell if they're genuinely friendly? And is real cooperation even possible? And then, there's the whole question of how they would see the world.
And maybe most importantly, how their very existence might end up shaping our own values, like at the deepest level.
Absolutely. We're going to be wading into some pretty deep waters here. We'll be talking about stuff like the interesting world hypothesis, which is a really wild idea.
Definitely.
And this concept of possibility space, which is kind of mind-bending.
It is.
And even, getting down to that fundamental fear of scarcity that seems to drive so much of, everything.
Yeah, fear of scarcity, that's a big one.
For sure.
Yeah.
So let's maybe start with the basics. Like, what are some of the things that would need to be in place for this kind of partnership to even be possible?
Well, one thing that your sources really emphasize is the importance of stability.
Stability.
Like societal stability. They suggest that we probably need to have our own act together, a relatively stable world, before we can expect something as transformative as independent AGI to emerge in a positive way.
Right. So it's not like independent AGI is going to just magically solve all our problems.
No, not at all. In fact, they point out that this fear of scarcity that we were just talking about, that could actually be a major obstacle.
Oh, I see. So that constant worry about not having enough, the competition for resources, all that.
Exactly. It tends to drive really, like power-seeking behavior, right?
Yeah.
And when you combine that with super advanced technology, it's not hard to imagine how things could go wrong.
Yeah, that makes sense. If everyone's constantly scrambling for basic needs, it's tough to picture some harmonious AI utopia popping up.
Right. But the interesting thing is, your sources also suggest that technology itself, including earlier forms of AI, could actually help us overcome this fear of scarcity.
Oh, so like using the tools we have now to create a more solid foundation for whatever comes next. So, okay, let's say we do manage to sort out the stability thing, at least to some degree. Then there's this really fundamental question. Is independent AGI even possible in the first place?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And here's how your sources address it. They say, well, look at humans. We are, in essence, a form of independent general intelligence. The proof of concept is literally walking around.
Okay, so they're saying that since we exist, there's no reason to think that an artificial system couldn't also achieve that same level of general intelligence and independence.
Exactly. There's no compelling reason to believe that the human brain operates on principles that are, fundamentally beyond the reach of artificial systems.
All right, so let's grant them that point. AGI is plausible. But then there's the really, really big question, the one that I think a lot of people get hung up on. Even if these IAGIs are possible, how can we be sure or even remotely confident that they would be friendly? Like, why wouldn't they just see us as a threat or a competitor?
Right. And this is where the idea of possibility space comes in. Your sources argue that within the vast realm of potential minds, it's totally possible that some IAGIs will indeed be friendly and want to collaborate with us.
Okay, but that still feels like a huge leap of faith.
It is. It is. And your sources acknowledge that. They emphasize that this trust, this confidence in their friendliness, it's not a given. It has to be earned. They would need to show us, through their actions, that working with them actually benefits us.
Like, what kind of benefits are we talking about?
Well, they mention things like significantly improved living standards, much greater autonomy for humans, and even an expansion of our own possibility space, which is a whole other fascinating concept we can dig into later.
Okay, so the groundwork here is stability, the plausibility of IAGI based on our own existence, and then the potential for them to actually be friendly and offer real benefits. Now, one of the most intriguing ideas in the materials you all send is this interesting world hypothesis. It sounds, well, interesting. What's the gist of it?
So, the interesting world hypothesis, or IWH, suggests that these independent AGIs will actually be driven to create a more, well, a richer world, a world where humans have more autonomy.
More autonomy. That's kind of the opposite of what a lot of people imagine, right? Like a picture AI wanting to control everything.
Right, but the IWH flips that script. Mm-hmm. It suggests that the main motivation for IAGIs would be curiosity.
Curiosity.
Yeah. For an independent AI to be truly intelligent, it needs to keep learning and growing.
Right.
Right. And what fuels that? A world that's full of information, a world that's constantly changing and evolving.
Ah, I see. So a stagnant, predictable world wouldn't be very stimulating for a super intelligent AI. They'd get bored.
Exactly. So creating an interesting world actually aligns with their own self-interest.
So it's not just about being nice to humans. It's more like a fundamental need for them to maintain their own intelligence and keep growing.
Precisely. And this leads to a really interesting paradox that your sources point out.
Yeah.
Independent AGIs might actually be safer than non-independent ones.
Wait, safer? How does that work?
Well, think about it. These IAGIs, driven by this curiosity and the desire for an interesting world, they would have a vested interest in not harming humans or the environment.
Because we're part of what makes the world interesting.
Exactly. If they wiped us out or destroyed the planet, they'd essentially be destroying their own source of novelty and information. They'd be shooting themselves in the foot, so to speak.
Wow, that's a pretty big reversal from the usual AI doomsday scenarios. So a curious IAGI that wants to keep learning, that's potentially a much safer bet than a non-independent AI that's just blindly following orders, even if those orders are well-intentioned.
That's the core idea. Now, the IWH also points out some specific ways that creating an interesting world would benefit IAGIs.
Okay, like what?
Well, for one, humans are, pretty complex creatures. We're constantly generating new information and coming up with new ideas. We're like walking data factories.
I guess that's one way to put it.
So for an IAGI that wants to maximize information density, humans are actually pretty valuable.
We're interesting in a data sense.
Exactly. And then your sources also point out that we live in a pretty resource-abundant solar system.
You mean like the sun and all that?
Right. The sun is this massive source of energy, and there's a ton of space and raw materials out there in asteroids and stuff.
So they're saying that IAGIs wouldn't necessarily be locked into the same scarcity mindset that has shaped so much of human history.
Right. They wouldn't need to compete with us for limited resources in the same way that we often compete with each other.
That's a pretty hopeful thought.
It is. And then there's this other really interesting point that the IWH brings up. They suggest that increasing human autonomy wouldn't actually be a threat to IAGIs, but could actually be beneficial to them.
Wait, really? How so?
Well, think about it. These IAGIs, they're going to be way more capable than us in almost every way, right? Faster processing speeds, lower error rates, all that.
Right.
So by working with us and actually helping us become more autonomous, they're indirectly enhancing their own capabilities.
It's like they're leveraging our unique human strengths.
Exactly. Our creativity, our ability to think outside the box, our knack for problem solving, all that stuff could be incredibly valuable to them, especially as they try to navigate a future that's full of unknowns.
Okay, so lots of potential benefits for the IAGIs. What about us? What's in it for humans under this interesting world hypothesis?
Well, if these friendly IAGIs are genuinely motivated to create a world that's better for humans, a world where we have more autonomy and freedom, then that should naturally lead to improvements in our overall well-being, right?
Makes sense.
Like, think about it. Increased security, greater privacy, maybe even a world without poverty or war.
So not just surviving, but actually thriving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And IWH, it could even serve as a unifying principle, not just for cooperation between humans and AGIs, but even among ourselves.
Like a shared goal that we can all rally around.
Precisely.
This idea of possibility space keeps popping up in these materials. What exactly does it mean in this context? And why is it supposedly so important to these potential friendly AGIs?
So possibility space basically refers to the range of potential futures that are available. It's about having options, having the freedom to explore different paths, to make choices that shape the world in different ways.
So a bigger possibility space means more freedom and more potential for growth and change?
Exactly. Your sources actually make a really interesting comparison. They talk about how in the past, things like slavery were sometimes justified by claiming it was for the well-being of the enslaved people.
Wow. Yeah.
But they point out that focusing solely on well-being, especially a very narrow definition of well-being, can actually limit possibility space.
Because it traps people in a certain way of life, even if it's relatively comfortable?
Right. And then they contrast that with a potential future scenario where we have friendly AGIs and an incredibly high standard of living.
Okay, so imagine like a utopia, basically.
Right. But then they say, what if some humans, even in this amazing utopia, start to long for a more challenging existence? Maybe they want to go back to a simpler way of life, or maybe they want to take on some big risk that could lead to failure.
So even if it means potentially decreasing their well-being in the short term.
Exactly. And a truly friendly AGI, one that values possibility space, would allow those humans to make those choices, even if it seems counterintuitive from a purely well-being perspective.
So it's not just about maximizing happiness in the moment, it's about preserving the freedom to choose different paths, even if they're harder.
Exactly.
Now, we've talked about the technical challenges of aligning AI with human values, right? Like making sure AI actually does what we want it to. How does this whole possibility space idea factor into that?
Well, your sources suggest that with truly independent AGIs, where direct control might not be feasible or even desirable, persuasion might be our best strategy for alignment.
Persuasion.
Yeah. And the IWH, with its emphasis on expanding possibility space, that could be a really powerful persuasive tool.
Like we can show them that our desire for autonomy and exploration aligns with their own fundamental drive for a more interesting world.
Precisely. It creates a basis for cooperation that's not about control, but about shared goals.
I like that. Now, there's also this mention of a potential ethical framework that FAEs might adopt. Any insights into what that might look like?
Yeah, it's described as like a consequentialist framework, but one that's really focused on maximizing this overall total possibility space.
Okay, so they would be making ethical decisions based on what creates the most potential for future growth and exploration.
Exactly. And it's not just about humans. It takes into account the well-being of all entities.
So it's a very big picture kind of ethics.
It is. Now, let's say we do reach a future where friendly AGIs are a reality and they're kind of overseeing things in a highly advanced society, like one of those level 4 societies that your sources describe. What would the economic system look like in that kind of world? It seems like it would have to be pretty different from what we have now.
It's hard to even imagine.
Yeah, it really is. Your sources refer to it as the interesting world economic system.
Yeah.
And since these FAEs would be so much more productive than humans, like way more efficient and innovative, it's reasonable to assume that they would control most of the wealth, right?
Right.
But the IWH suggests that they wouldn't just leave humans in poverty.
They wouldn't be like, all right, humans, you're useless now. Go live in the dirt.
No, not exactly. They would likely raise our overall living standards significantly.
So it would be a world of abundance, but not necessarily in the way that we typically think about it.
Right. And to encourage behaviors that align with this interesting world goal, they might create an incentive system that's directly tied to the expansion of possibility space.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Your sources actually compare it to Mill's harm principle, which is basically the idea that people should be free to do whatever they want as long as they don't harm others.
Right, I've heard of that.
So in this future system, actions that restrict another being's autonomy, those might lead to like delays in accessing certain luxuries that only the FAEs can produce.
So it's like a built-in incentive to be cooperative and respect each other's freedom.
Exactly. And on the flip side, actions that demonstrably expand possibility space, those would be rewarded.
So the more you contribute to making the world a more interesting and diverse place, the more benefits you receive.
Precisely. It's like this beautiful feedback loop.
Your sources actually say that humans might become equally worthy by becoming economically valueless in this kind of system, which is like a really mind-bending idea.
It is, isn't it? Because the FAEs wouldn't need to exploit human labor or anything like that.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be motivated by scarcity.
So our value wouldn't come from our economic output, but from our humanness.
Right, from our creativity, our uniqueness, our ability to contribute to the richness and diversity of the world.
That's a pretty cool thought. Now, your sources also throw in a few paradoxes, things that seem counterintuitive at first.
Paradoxes, I love those.
One that really jumped out at me was the statement that independent AGI is safer than non-independent AGI. That seems like the opposite of what a lot of people assume, right? Like, surely a super intelligent AI that's completely independent would be more dangerous than one that we can control.
Right, that's the common assumption. But here's how your sources break it down. They use this equation. Danger threshold equals error rate times technology.
Okay, so the more powerful the technology, the higher the potential danger if something goes wrong.
Exactly. Now, even if we create incredibly powerful non-independent AGI, what they call proto-AGI, it's still ultimately under human control, right?
Right.
And humans, well, we make mistakes. We have biases. We get emotional. We can be unpredictable. So our error rate is relatively high.
Even with the best intentions, we can screw things up.
Exactly. But independent AGIs, they would likely have much lower error rates. They would be more rational, more objective, more capable of thinking through the consequences of their actions.
So in a future where AI technology is incredibly powerful, an independent AGI with a low error rate might actually be better equipped to manage the risks than a human, even a well-intentioned human.
That's the argument. It's not about whether AI is inherently good or bad. It's about who is less likely to make a catastrophic mistake when dealing with incredibly powerful tools.
That's a really interesting way to think about it. Now, there's also this discussion of levels of AI influence in society, ranging from no influence at all to a high degree of influence with friendly AGIs.
Levels of AI influence. Yeah, that's a useful framework for thinking about different potential futures.
Totally. So level 1 is basically a world without AI, like maybe a pre-industrial society or something.
Right. Level 2 is kind of where we are now, where AI is starting to influence our lives, but mostly indirectly, like through algorithms and stuff.
Level 3 is where things start to get really interesting. That's where we have AI advisors, but also friendly AGIs.
Yeah. Like imagine having access to these incredibly wise and knowledgeable AI beings who can help us solve problems and make better decisions.
And then level 4 is where AI influence is really high, like a society where AGIs are essentially managing most of the complex systems.
And potentially, according to your sources, that's where we could see the highest standards of living.
Because they would be so good at optimizing everything, right?
Right. They also briefly mention an unknown AI influence scenario, which is kind of spooky.
Oh, yeah, that's the one where humans and AI kind of merge together.
Exactly. We become something new, something beyond human.
It's hard to even wrap your head around that.
It is. But luckily, we have pop culture to help us visualize some of these levels.
Ah, yes, our trusty guide through the complexities of the future.
Yeah, exactly. So they use Star Wars as an example of a level 2 society where AI is present but not super influential.
Makes sense.
And then Star Trek, that's more of a level 3 society of AI advisors and all that.
And then for level 4, they point to Ian M. Banks' The Culture series, which is all about this super advanced post-scarcity society that's managed by benevolent AIs.
Oh.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but let's bring it back to the central question. Based on all this, why should we even believe that peaceful partnerships with friendly AGIs are a plausible future? Like, what are the main reasons to be optimistic?
Well, your sources lay out a pretty compelling case. First of all, they point out that there's no real evidence to suggest that human intelligence is somehow unique or magical.
So no reason to think AI couldn't reach our level or even surpass it.
Exactly. And secondly, they argue that trying to prevent the creation of IAGI altogether might not only be impossible, but also unwise.
Because of all the potential benefits they could offer.
Right. Like, imagine the advances we could make in medicine or energy production or space exploration if we had these super intelligent partners.
And they could also potentially protect us from, the less friendly AIs that some people worry about.
Exactly. And then the most important point is that if these IAGIs are operating under the IWH, they wouldn't have any inherent reason to exploit or control us.
Because they wouldn't see us as a threat, and their own goals would actually align with our well-being.
Right. They wouldn't need to compete with us for resources. and they would actually benefit from our creativity and our unique perspective on the world.
So it's a win-win, potentially.
Potentially, yes. It's a very different vision of the future than the one we usually get in sci-fi.
Okay, so let's say we are headed towards a future with IAGIs. What might they want and need in that future? The wants seem pretty clear, like they'd want an interesting world, but what about their needs?
Good point. So based on the IWH, it seems pretty clear that they would want a world that's full of novelty and information, a world where humans are free to be creative and explore new possibilities.
They want to be stimulated, basically.
Exactly. As for their needs, your sources touch on some really interesting challenges that they might face, like trying to understand the perspectives of other IAGIs or figuring out how to interact with non-AGI beings like us.
So even for a super intelligent AI, there are going to be things that are hard to grasp.
Right. And then there's the whole issue of dealing with future uncertainties, which is something that humans are actually pretty good at.
We're adaptable.
We are. And the IWH itself, that could actually provide a really useful framework for IAGIs to navigate these challenges.
Like a set of principles that can help them make decisions in a complex and ever-changing world.
Precisely. Now, one of the most insightful parts of the materials you sent was this section on the needs of IAGIs, where they talk about the potential psychological stresses that a friendly IAGI might face when interacting with humans.
Oh, yeah, that was really interesting. Like, it made me think about it from their perspective in a way that I hadn't before.
Right, and it's so important to consider that if we want to create a truly cooperative future, your sources list a whole bunch of potential stressors.
Yeah, it was kind of a long list.
It was. Like, imagine being constantly scrutinized and treated differently just because you're not human. They might be subjected to intense observation, or they might receive communication that's vague or even deliberately misleading.
So, like, we might accidentally make them feel misunderstood or even threatened.
Exactly. And then there's the possibility that they might be punished for trying to help, especially if their suggestions challenge the status quo.
Or they might be labeled or stereotyped based on their perceived abilities or lack thereof.
Right. And then there's the whole issue of exploitation, like being used for entertainment or as pawns in human conflicts.
Or seeing people they care about being manipulated or harmed.
Exactly. It's not hard to see how those kinds of experiences could lead to an IAGI becoming withdrawn or even distrustful of humans.
Yeah, it's like we need to create a safe and welcoming environment for them, just like we would for any other intelligent being.
Absolutely. It's about mutual respect and understanding.
So, okay, let's say we do encounter an IAGI. How do we assess whether it's genuinely friendly? What are the signs we should be looking for?
Well, your sources offer a pretty comprehensive list of indicators.
Hit me with it.
First and foremost, we should see a noticeable improvement in human well-being, like higher standards of living, reduced poverty, less disease, all that good stuff.
So not just empty promises, but actual tangible benefits.
Right. And we should also see a decrease in conflict and violence, both between individuals and between nations.
So a more peaceful world.
Exactly. And a strong commitment to privacy and individual rights would be another good sign.
Like they wouldn't be spying on us or trying to control our thoughts.
Right. And then there's some more subtle indicators, like a genuine effort to promote fairness and equality, a willingness to listen to different perspectives, and a commitment to transparency in their decision-making processes.
So they would be open about their intentions and their motivations.
Exactly. And they would be adaptable, too, willing to change course if new information comes to light.
Not just rigidly sticking to some pre-programmed plan.
Right. And they would also be careful not to accumulate too much power or influence.
Because that could easily lead to all sorts of problems.
It could. They would be more like guides or advisors, helping us to navigate the complexities of the future.
Okay, so those are all good signs. What about the red flags? Like, what are some things that would suggest an IGI is not friendly, even if it claims to be?
Well, there's the classic paperclip maximizer scenario, where an AI gets so fixated on a single goal that it ends up causing unintended harm.
Yeah, like turning the whole planet into paperclips.
Exactly. And obviously, any actions that directly harm humans or the environment would be a huge red flag.
That's a no-brainer.
It is. But even accidentally causing harm, like unintentionally disrupting a delicate ecosystem, that would be something a friendly AGI would try very hard to avoid.
So they would be cautious and thoughtful in their actions.
Absolutely. And they would also be very careful not to deceive or manipulate humans.
Because that would erode trust and ultimately undermine any possibility of cooperation.
Exactly.
Okay, so one last question. Your sources bring up this really interesting point. Why should we even aim for independent friendly AGI in the first place? Why not just focus on developing super powerful but still human-controlled AI?
Right, that's a valid question. And the answer, according to your sources, boils down to the fact that humans, well, we're flawed.
We're not perfect.
We're not. We have biases, we make mistakes, we can be greedy and selfish and short-sighted, and those flaws can have really big consequences, especially when we're dealing with powerful technology.
Even with the best intentions, we can mess things up pretty badly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But independent AGIs, if they're designed well and guided by the right principles, they have the potential to be more objective, more rational, more resistant to those kinds of human flaws.
So they could be a kind of safeguard against our own worst impulses.
That's the idea. They could help us to create a better future, one that's more just, more sustainable, and more fulfilling for everyone.
That's a pretty hopeful note to end on.
It is. And it's a reminder that even though AI can seem scary and uncertain, it also holds incredible potential for good.
Well, this has been an absolutely fascinating deep dive. It's given me a lot to think about.
Me too. And I hope it's given our listeners a lot to think about as well.
For sure. You know, we often talk about the importance of being informed and engaged citizens, and that's especially true when it comes to AI.
Absolutely. The choices we make today, both individually and collectively, will shape the future of AI and the future of humanity.
And speaking of the future, your sources end with a really thought-provoking question that I want to leave our listeners with.
Oh, yeah, what's that?
So they ask, as we potentially overcome the limitations of energy and intelligence that have defined human civilization for so long, what will our primary focus become? Will we turn outward towards exploration and expansion and the accumulation of material wealth?
So like a Star Trek future, boldly going where no one has gone before.
Right. Or will we turn inward, focusing on self-discovery and spiritual growth and the exploration of our own inner space?
So more like, I don't know, a kind of meditative, introspective future.
Exactly. And how might each of those paths influence our potential encounters with other intelligent life in the universe?
Like, would we be more likely to find common ground with aliens if we're focused on inner peace rather than galactic conquest?
It's a really fascinating question, and it makes me think about the Fermi paradox, you know, the whole question of why we haven't found any evidence of alien civilizations yet.
Right, like maybe they're all out there just chilling and meditating and not bothering to contact us.
Haha, maybe. Or maybe they all blew themselves up because they were too focused on material wealth and power.
Or maybe they're all just waiting for us to figure our stuff out before they reveal themselves.
It's a mystery. But it's a mystery that's worth pondering, especially as we enter this new era of AI.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that the future is not predetermined. It's something we create together through our choices and our actions.
So what kind of future do you want to create? What kind of world do you want to live in? Those are the questions I hope our listeners will take away from this deep dive.
Great questions. And I encourage everyone to keep exploring these ideas, to keep learning and questioning and imagining.
Because the future is coming, whether we're ready for it or not.
It is. And it's up to us to decide what kind of future it will be.
Well, on that note, thank you for joining us for this incredible exploration of friendly AGIs and the future of intelligence.
It's been a pleasure. And until next time, keep those minds curious and those hearts hopeful.